What truly awaits us, beyond the final breath? Is it oblivion or an extraordinary journey into realms unseen by human eyes? Welcome, brave soul traveler, to a voyage unlike any other. Today, we unlock the sacred doors to one of the most profound and mystical teachings ever recorded, the Bardo Thodol, known to the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is not a mere book. It is an ancient map for the soul, a guide whispered through centuries to illuminate what happens when the body falls away and only consciousness remains. Imagine, if you will, a spiritual compass meant to guide you across the most mysterious terrain of existence, the passage from life through death and beyond. The Bardo Thodol does exactly this, but it is not a grim account of ending. No, it is a glorious revelation that death is not destruction, but transformation, an opening into realms more vivid, more real than anything the physical senses have ever known. Today, together, we walk these hidden paths with ancient wisdom as our lantern. Before we continue, type "I am ready to awaken" in the comments if you are prepared to explore the great mysteries beyond life itself. The Bardo Thodol was bestowed upon humanity through Padmasambhava, a being so revered that Tibet remembers him not merely as a monk, but as Guru Rinpoche, the precious master. Emerging from the sacred soils of India, he carried with him not just Buddhist teachings, but esoteric wisdom that could tame spirits, heal lands, and illuminate hearts. His mission was not to serve only the living, but also to liberate the dead, for he saw that even after the final heartbeat, the soul still journeys, still chooses, still awakens. In the 8th century, King Trisong Detsen summoned Padmasambhava to Tibet, a land steeped in ancient Bun shamanism and fierce spiritual forces. The king desired to unify Tibet under the light of Buddhism, but the old spirits and beliefs resisted fiercely. It was Padmasambhava, with his mastery of tantric rituals and mystical prowess, who harmonized these forces, weaving them into a new tapestry of Tibetan Buddhism, where both ancient and new wisdom could coexist. From these sacred efforts arose Sami Monastery, Tibet's first great center of learning and practice. Yet, the jewel among Padmasambhava's offerings was the Bardo Thodol, a map for the soul at death, a guide so that no being need wander lost in fear when their moment of transition came. With infinite compassion, he sought to prepare every seeker not just for life, but for the great voyage that begins after life. And so today, as we cross this threshold of ancient wisdom together, I invite you, keep your heart open, your mind expansive, and your spirit ready to receive what few have dared to study, but all must one day experience. Let us journey into the mysteries of death and uncover the radiant truth hidden beyond. From his earliest days, Padmasambhava showed signs that he was no ordinary being. In a world brimming with confusion and suffering, he was a Mahasiddhi, a master who had pierced through the veils of illusion and attained mystical powers known as siddhis. His life was a living testament to the truth that there is more to existence than what the eyes can see. With every breath, every prayer, he was preparing humanity for a knowledge so profound that even death would become a doorway, not a defeat. When he stepped onto the sacred lands of Tibet, he found a people still tethered to ancient Bun traditions, a land alive with unseen spirits, both wild and benevolent. Resistance to change ran deep, but Padmasambhava did not battle with the old ways. Instead, he transmuted them. He tamed the fierce spirits through rituals, transforming their energies into protectors of the new teachings. Thus, Tibetan Buddhism became a living fusion of cosmic wisdom and indigenous roots, a bridge between worlds. In this extraordinary merging of forces, the Bardo Thodol was born, not as a mere book, but as a vibration, a transmission of sacred knowledge intended to guide the soul when the body falls away. Padmasambhava, understood what few dared to consider, that the moment of death is not darkness, but an unprecedented opening. A chance for the soul, freed from the density of flesh, to recognize its true nature at last. But he also knew the truth. Most souls are unprepared. Even at the threshold of liberation, fear, confusion, and attachment weave illusions that pulled a spirit away from freedom. And so he composed the Bardo Thodol to be read aloud to the dying, to remind them at the most critical moment of who they really are and what infinite possibilities await. This sacred guide was never meant to create fear. It was crafted with infinite compassion, born from the realization that death is not the end, but the ultimate spiritual opportunity. The physical body dissolves, the world fades away, but the mind remains brilliant, vast, and receptive. In that vulnerable in-between, where all masks are stripped away, liberation is possible if the soul can remember the light. In the teachings of the Bardo Thodol, Padmasambhava left humanity a priceless treasure, a roadmap not only for death, but for life itself. For to understand death is to understand existence, and the one who is prepared for death is the one who can truly deeply live. Within the ancient teachings, the Bardo Thodol describes that death is not an end, but the beginning of a three-stage journey. These stages are known as the Bardo's vast realms of transition, where the soul encounters its deepest truths. Each Bardo is a mirror, revealing either the luminous face of liberation or the lingering shadows of fear and attachment. And the first threshold is the Chekai Bardo, the moment of death. In the Chekai Bardo, the body begins its sacred dissolution. The elements, earth, water, fire, air, each fall away in turn, returning to the vastness from which they came. The physical form crumbles like a forgotten temple, but the essence of consciousness awakens. In that moment, the soul faces the primordial clear light, an immense, dazzling brilliance, free of all shape, story, or suffering. It is the mind's purest nature revealed. This clear light is not a being, not a deity. It is the soul's own unconditioned self, the eternal consciousness that was never born and can never die. Some call it the higher self, others the solar mind. But names are but shadows. In this first moment after death, there is an unparalleled opportunity. If the soul can recognize this light as its own true being, it will achieve instant liberation, freedom from the endless cycles of rebirth, sorrow, and striving. Yet here lies the great paradox. For the unprepared, the clear light, though pure, appears terrifying. So used to the familiar world of form and identity, the soul often shrinks back, overwhelmed by the sheer immensity of what it beholds. Fear and attachment cloud its vision. Instead of merging with the light, the soul recoils, and thus the journey into deeper bardos begins. For the awakened practitioner, the Chekai Bardo is the culmination of all spiritual training. In life, they have studied the nature of mind, loosened the chains of desire and fear, prepared their heart to recognize the truth when it shines brightest. But for the ordinary soul, clinging to the illusions of self, the clear light is a mist portal, a fleeting glimpse of heaven lost to hesitation. Thus the ancient masters urge us, prepare now, contemplate the light, not as something far away, but as the very core of your being. For in the end, it is not rituals or beliefs that will save you. It is recognition, the remembrance that you are already what you seek. For those unable to merge with the clear light, the journey continues into the Chonid Bardo, the Bardo of visions, where the soul must face the vast landscapes of its own mind. Here, freed from the limitations of flesh, consciousness weaves visions of both awe and terror, revealing the hidden architecture of the psyche. No longer shielded by a physical body, the soul experiences its inner world projected outward with piercing clarity. In this stage, the visions are divided into two waves, the peaceful deities and the wrathful deities. The peaceful deities emerge first, radiant beings of light, compassion, and wisdom. They are not external gods, but manifestations of the soul's own enlightened nature, qualities of serenity, clarity, and unconditional love. Made visible, those who recognize them for what they are can still achieve liberation, merging with the truth behind the form. But recognition is not easy. Even beauty, when unfamiliar, can provoke fear. Souls burdened by lifetimes of attachment to material life may find these luminous beings overwhelming or dismiss them as dreams. Doubt arises. Fear creeps in, and when the peaceful visions are not embraced, the second wave comes, the wrathful deities. These terrifying forms, monstrous, fierce, chaotic, are not punishments. They are the soul's own repressed emotions, untamed desires, and unhealed wounds, now roaring into view. Here, the words of Carl Jung echo with chilling truth. Gods and demons are not external. They are the contents of the unconscious mind. In the Cheniad Bardo, all that was denied, feared, or hidden in life rises to the surface. The soul stands before its own forgotten reflections. The challenge is immense. To see through the terror, to recognize that even the monstrous forms are empty, ephemeral, born of one's own mind. The Bardo Thedol instructs the soul at this stage to hold fast to the memory of the clear light. If one can see these visions, both serene and frightening, as mere illusions, as dreams within the greater dream, liberation remains possible. To recognize the formless truth behind the forms is to awaken in the midst of the bardo and step into eternal freedom. For those who falter, however, the illusions harden. The soul becomes entangled in fear, desire, and aversion, setting the stage for the next phase of the journey. Yet even in failure, there is no punishment, only another chance, another lesson. The soul is not judged by an outer force, but guided by the law of its own heart. The Cheniad Bardo is often described as a realm of mirrors, where every thought, every hidden fear, and every secret longing is reflected back with dazzling intensity. Unlike dreams of the living, these visions are vivid beyond imagination, sharp, electric, undeniable. There are no distractions to dull the senses. Consciousness stands naked before itself, and what it sees depends entirely on the seeds planted during life. If the soul, during its earthly walk, cultivated love, wisdom, and courage, the peaceful visions will feel familiar and inviting. The soul will gravitate toward the light, recognizing in it a long-lost home. But if the soul has lived in anger, fear, or greed, the peaceful deities may seem distant, and the wrathful visions overwhelmingly real. Thus, the bardo is not a random or external judgment. It is the soul encountering the energetic echo of its own existence. During this time, the Bardo Thedol advises one simple yet profound practice. Do not cling and do not fear. Whether the soul beholds realms of bliss or nightmares of horror, all are but the mind's own creations, like clouds drifting across the sky of consciousness. To hold on to any vision, whether beautiful or terrible, is to fall deeper into illusion. To recognize all visions as passing phenomena is to step closer to awakening. The peaceful deities represent the virtues we can embody: compassion, clarity, wisdom, fearlessness. The wrathful deities, monstrous as they appear, are not enemies, but guardians of transformation. They are the fierce forms of truth, shattering attachments and illusions, offering liberation through confrontation. In Tibetan art, these beings are often depicted with terrifying visages, yet crowned with symbols of wisdom, for they break down the false self so that the true self may rise. Many souls, however, cannot endure the raw honesty of this stage. They flee from the visions or attempt to cling to fleeting images of safety. Each retreat, each grasping, spins the soul further into the currents of samsara. the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But even here, compassion reigns. No soul is lost forever. Each journey, each bardo, is another chance to awaken to the truth. Thus, the Choniad Bardo teaches us a cosmic truth. Everything you fear is a part of you, waiting to be understood. Every demon hides a gift. Every terror, when faced with courage, becomes a bridge to the clear light. The soul's task is not to defeat the visions, but to recognize their true nature, and through that recognition, reclaim its freedom. As the soul journeys through the Choniad Bardo, the intensity of visions begins to soften, but a new weight starts to pull at consciousness, the gravity of rebirth. When the clear light has not been recognized, and the visions have not been transcended, the soul's innate tendencies reassert themselves. What follows is the entrance into the third and final passage, the Sedpa Bardo, the Bardo of becoming. In the Sedpa Bardo, the soul feels the pull of desire more keenly than ever before. Without a physical body to anchor it, the soul hungers to exist, to experience, to be once again. This thirst, subtle yet overwhelming, draws the soul toward new realms, toward parents, toward a womb. Karma, the accumulated force of countless past actions, thoughts, and emotions, now operates like a magnetic field, silently steering the soul's next destination. The visions in the Sedpa Bardo are different. They are no longer deities or terrifying forms of the mind, but symbolic images of birth, union, and embodiment. The soul begins to perceive scenes of beings coming together, sometimes as human, sometimes as animal, depending on the energetic imprint carried within. It is not a conscious choice. It is an instinctual pull, a gravitational force determined by the soul's own state of mind. The Bardo Thudo teaches that even here, a profound opportunity remains. If the soul can recognize these visions as illusions, can maintain detachment and lucidity, it can still resist rebirth and merge into the clear light. However, few souls possess such calmness at this late stage. The longing for form, for familiarity, for sensation, often overcomes wisdom, and thus the cycle of samsara continues. Tibetan masters have long taught that preparation for this moment begins not at death, but in life. To live mindfully, to contemplate impermanence, to detach from the endless grasping at pleasure and avoidance of pain, these practices forge a strength that survives the death of the body. They prepare the soul to meet the Sedpa Bardo, not with panic, but with presence. And so the final choice unfolds, to be drawn once more into the dream of existence, or to awaken and step beyond. Few realize how much power they hold, even in these final moments. For even when all seems lost, the soul can still remember, I am not this fear. I am the light beyond all forms. As the Sedpa Bardo deepens, the soul feels itself being drawn toward embodiment, almost like a river pulled by gravity toward the sea. This pull is not random. It is shaped by the karmic patterns etched into the soul's very being, habits of thought, feeling, and action that weave the blueprint of the next life. In this space, desire and aversion are the sculptors of destiny. The visions become more vivid and specific. The soul witnesses scenes of future parents, feels attractions and repulsions, and unknowingly moves toward a womb that matches its inner vibration. Unresolved desires, fear, anger, or longing can cause the soul to fall into conditions that mirror these inner states. A soul gripped by violence may be drawn into turbulent worlds. One clinging to sorrow may find itself in realms of suffering. But even amid this powerful current, there is still a sliver of freedom. Tibetan teachings emphasize that lucid awareness during the Sedpa Bardo is the key to altering fate. If the soul, even at this late stage, can recognize that these visions are illusions, can remain unattached, and call to mind the clear light, it can still escape the pull of rebirth and enter the realm of liberation. Even a single moment of clarity can open the door to freedom. The Saipa Bardo reveals a stunning truth, that life and death are mirrors of each other. How we live shapes how we die, and how we die shapes how we live again. In every thought, every emotion, we are preparing for the next unfolding. Death is not a final exam. It is a continuation, a flowering of the seeds planted through countless lifetimes. Thus, the ancient masters teach, live with awareness, live with love. Not because you fear punishment, but because you are sculpting the destiny of your soul. By facing our desires now, by transcending our fears now, we weaken the pull of samsara and strengthen the soul's ability to remain awake in the bardos. Ultimately, the Siddha Bardo teaches that the journey does not end with death, nor with rebirth. The soul is on an eternal quest, not just to survive, but to awaken, to remember its divine origin, to return home to the luminous vastness from which it came. As the soul drifts through the final stages of the Siddha Bardo, the forces of desire and karma accelerate. The call toward rebirth becomes almost irresistible, a magnetic pull that feels natural, inevitable. Yet the Bardo Thadol reminds us, even here, choice still flickers. Liberation is never fully lost until the soul itself forgets its origin. The soul experiences intense emotional surges during this stage. Feelings of longing, fear, lust, anger. Each emotion acts as a gatekeeper, steering the soul toward realms that reflect those inner states. The textures of the next life, its joys, its struggles, are born not from external judgment, but from the very vibrations carried within. In this way, rebirth is not a punishment, but a perfect mirror, an opportunity to confront and heal what remains unresolved. Visions of potential parents arise, and the soul instinctively moves toward them, drawn by familiar energies. Tibetan teachings say that without awareness, the soul chooses almost blindly, swept up by karmic winds. Yet, if a moment of mindfulness appears, if the soul can recognize these visions as dreamlike and impermanent, it can still steer away from entanglement and remember its greater destiny. In these critical moments, the ancient wisdom calls for detachment and clarity, not coldness, but a serene witnessing of all that arises. To see the dance of forms and emotions without grasping, without rejecting. This is the soul's ultimate practice, to love without clinging, to observe without fear, to remember its eternal self even amid the siren song of existence. If rebirth occurs, it is not failure. It is simply another chapter in the soul's long pilgrimage toward awakening. Yet to glimpse the mechanics of this process, to understand how deeply our lives shape our deaths, and our deaths shape our rebirths, is to reclaim an ancient power, the power to choose, not by force, but by the steady light of awareness. Thus, the Siddha Bardo reveals, you are not a victim of fate. You are the dreamer, the creator, the traveler. Every choice, every breath, every moment of courage shapes the invisible worlds you will one day walk. Life, death, and rebirth are but changing garments for the same eternal spirit. As the Siddha Bardo nears its final threshold, the soul reaches a decisive moment, the crossing from spirit back into flesh. The longing for embodiment merges with karmic gravity, and the soul steps through the veil into a new existence. But remember, every passage, every choice, every yearning was born from the seeds planted long before the last breath was taken. The Bardo Thodol teaches that even the circumstances of one's birth, one's body, one's family, one's environment are reflections, not accidents. They mirror the soul's unresolved lessons, its deep desires, and the growth it still seeks. Some may find themselves born into abundance and ease, others into hardship and trial. Yet both are sacred opportunities, designed with precision by the silent architect of karma. In the final moments before rebirth, the soul may catch glimpses of its coming life. Echoes of future joys and sorrows flicker like distant stars. If awareness remains, even now, the soul can choose to enter with a higher purpose, to learn, to love, to awaken further. But if lost in fear or craving, the soul plunges headfirst, repeating old patterns, stepping once more into the dance of samsara. Padmasambhava's vision was clear. This knowledge was not given to create fear, but freedom. If we understand the laws that govern our passage, we can live now with deeper grace. We can die not in confusion, but in clarity. And whether we are reborn or liberated, we step with conscious feet onto the path we ourselves have forged. Thus, the Bardo Thodol is not merely a guide for the dying. It is a manual for living. It reminds us that every moment matters. Every thought carves the landscape of the future. Every act of love lights a lantern in the darkness we will one day cross. And so we arrive at the great truth. To prepare for death is to prepare for life. To live awake is to die awake. The final mystery is not death itself. It is the forgetting of who we are. And the final liberation is not escape. It is remembrance. The Bardo Thodol stands not merely as a book of death, but as a mirror held up to the living. It teaches us that consciousness never truly ends. It only transforms. What we call death is not a collapse into nothingness, but a great unveiling, a return to the vast, luminous fields from which we once emerged. And whether we recognize the light or fall back into the wheel of rebirth depends not on rituals performed at the end, but on how we live every moment now. Padmasambhava's compassion was boundless because he understood even the fiercest demon is nothing but our own fear misunderstood. Even the clearest angel is but a reflection of our own hidden wisdom. There is nothing to fear in death. For those who walk awake in life, there is only remembrance or forgetting. There is only love or illusion. So what shall we do with this knowledge? The Bardo Thodol whispers its answer across time. Prepare now. Study your mind now. Release your attachments now. Train your heart to recognize the light now, so that when the final veil is lifted, you do not flee from your own divine face. Each day, you stand at the doorway of life and death, though it is invisible to your eyes. Every breath is a rehearsal for that final breath. Every act of courage, of compassion, of detachment, is a lamp you are lighting along the future path your soul will walk. You are crafting your journey, breath by breath, thought by thought, even now. And so, I leave you with a sacred challenge. Tonight, before you sleep, sit in silence for just 10 minutes. Imagine that this is your last night in this body. Feel the weight of that truth, not in fear, but in gratitude. Ask yourself, what do I still cling to? What do I still fear? What illusions am I ready to release? Write down whatever comes to your heart. Let this be your offering, your preparation, your awakening. And when you do, I invite you to share your experience in the comments. What surfaced in your silence? What did you realize about yourself? Your story may be the very light that another soul needs to see. Together, let us walk the ancient path of remembrance and awaken not only after death, but here and now.